I'm going to read something that John wrote. John, who's from the university in Brazil, and he wrote this story called a bicycle. Well, it's not really a story, but it can be read like one. Bicycle, a machine for making good mornings. Good morning, reader. I guess it's afternoon for some of us. You may be reading this text at night, but I still wish you a good morning. After all, this is a pleasant greeting that brings us closer and is universally used among human cultures. It is believed that the form of greeting arose along with our ability to produce language. Each country has an expression for good morning, some with some particularity. For example, although the Portuguese are known for being grumpy, I was surprised when I lived there, in Portuguese, I think he means in Portugal, and discovered that they usually say very good morning. For them, this is a demonstration of affection for the other person. In fact, I always felt happier when I heard very good morning from my Portuguese colleagues. Greeting people in the morning with a good morning is considered an act of good manners, but everything indicates that this way of greeting people with a good morning is disappearing in the world. Everything indicates that the villain is the private automobile. Dun dun dun. When driving a car, we are trapped and isolated inside a structure weighing a little over a ton. Furthermore, most cars have dark films to protect against solar radiation and to ensure the safety of those inside the car. These films, known as window tints, must maintain at least 70% transparency on the windows. However, in several sunny cities such as Natal in Brazil, non-compliance with the law is common. In some cases, the transparency is so reduced that it seems like an autonomous vehicle. We cannot see anyone inside the vehicle. I'm going to read a couple more paragraphs and then we'll start the presentation. The use of private cars in large cities also generates a high level of traffic congestion, causing slow traffic, a lot of noise and air pollution, and as a consequence, chronic irritation among drivers. With all this stress, drivers remain irritated even after the end of their commute. And when they arrive at work and are impatient, no one has the patience to wish others a good morning. After all, who has a good morning if they have to deal with traffic jams every day? Once again, the solution to recover the use of this beautiful expression, good morning, is the bicycle. I am a cyclist and I commute every day by bicycle, and since I am not isolated within an iron structure, I say good morning every day. For example, to employees when leaving the condominium and to residents who are walking and who I meet on the way. When I go to work, I meet people at the bus stops and I always say good morning. When I enter the university, I follow the bike path and I always find someone walking or running along the bike path. I'm not one of those who honk or complain about pedestrians. I prefer to always greet them with a good morning. The result is always a good morning and a smile on my face. After all, the bike path is for both cyclists and pedestrians, and we must use it in a civilized manner. Furthermore, the rule is clear. We cyclists must always respect and give way to pedestrians. By using the bike as a means of transportation every day, I am also creating a good morning for myself. When I cycle, I interact with nature, and this is good for my mental health. As a result of cycling, endorphins and dopamine are also released in my brain, generating a feeling of general well-being. Thinking long-term, by using the bike to go to work, I am improving the functioning of my cardiorespiratory system and ensuring a healthier life. So, using the bike is how the Spanish greet each other in the morning. Buenos dias, which means something like, I don't wish you just one good morning, I wish you many, many good days. That's why I say that the bike is a good day machine. So that was by John. Gosh, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Arajo. And he works at the university, the Federal University in Natal. And he mentioned dopamine in that little story I just read. And that's actually going to be part of what I'll share a little bit later this morning, because dopamine is a great thing to have, um, maybe all the time. So let's begin. And my name is Erik daSilva. Thank you for coming to a Wednesday Bicycle Coalition of Maine Wednesday webinar. If you're not familiar with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, we are a statewide nonprofit organization in the state of Maine, USA, and we strive to make a better place for people to walk, bike, and live their lives. We do this by building community, by helping people feel safer while biking and walking, and by advocating for legislation and infrastructure that supports that type of lifestyle. Today, I'm very lucky to be able to talk about an experience where I was invited to go to Brazil and engage with people that do the same type of work that the Bicycle Coalition of Maine does here, and that do that kind of work in Brazil. And so I'm going to be able to share a lot of what I experienced with all of you. And we're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about advocacy. We're going to just talk about like, and I'll show you lots of pictures and videos too of just like what things look like down there. It's a really incredibly different environment than what people are used to in Maine or probably anywhere in North America. And it's a fantastic place to visit. So I'm hoping some more people jump in the call, but please know that this is an open meeting area for folks. So if you have a question, if you want to unmute yourself, you can show yourself by video at any time you'd like. Please feel free to jump in and ask a question or make a comment. All right, so Toji Bikey, Toji Boa. So it's like every day I'm on a bike is great. Everything is fine. I'm on a bike. So just a little geographic information about the country of Brazil. It's the largest country in South America. It occupies approximately half of the continent, and the only country in South America where Portuguese is the official language, which I think is really interesting. All the other countries in South America and Central America speak Spanish. It has the largest Catholic population in the world, and it's a very big country. It's actually 4 time zones wide, and it's home to the Amazon River. So I visited 2 countries there. I visited Natal, which is this going to work? Right there at the very like kind of north, like eastern tip, jutting into the Atlantic Ocean. That's where I went first. And there's about 800,000 people there. Some people would say like just over 1 million if you start counting like all the surrounding neighborhoods. And then the second place I went was Rio de Janeiro. And that is a very big city. It's some people would say over 7 million people if you really get an accurate count of everyone there. And just to put that in perspective, Portland, Maine, has 70,000 people, and all of Maine has 1,400,000. So both of these are very large cities, and they're in a country that has a lot of people. In fact, like I flew in and out of São Paulo, which is near Rio de Janeiro, and São Paulo is the most populated city in all of the Americas. So a lot of the infrastructure we'll see and a lot of like just the amenities are possible because these are such large places as well. Partners of the Americas was the organization that reached out and they provided the grant and the support to actually get me and my good friend Nancy Grant, who's in the back seat of the car here. The 2 of us flew from Maine to Brazil. And the point of Partners of the Americas is really to support this cross-cultural sharing of education, experiences in order to foster like a single goal. And this trip in particular was a reciprocal of what had just happened more recently, where some people had come from Natal to Maine. And in this case, we were going down there. And we were sharing what we knew about education and advocacy and how to make communities better for walking and biking. And we get to talk to one another about this. And it's a really incredible experience. And so this picture here is actually the group from Brazil. And this is when they did the Trek Across Maine a couple of years ago. So they had come up, or yeah, I think this was a couple of years ago. So they had come up and they're wearing their jerseys and they were doing the trek. So, and believe it or not, in Natal, the city in Brazil, there's actually a entire building. It's a hotel called Hotel Maine. And this is where Partners of the Americas Natal chapter has their headquarters. So it's a great organization. I encourage you to learn more about it. And you can go to partners.net and learn more about Partners of the Americas, what they do, and how you might even engage in a lot of the activities. So Natal is a state in, or Rio Grande do Norte is the state in Brazil, which is partnering with the state in the USA, Maine. And each of the states in Maine, or I think each of the states in the United States have a partnering states somewhere else in the Americas, in the South Americas or Central Americas. So it's a really interesting organization and way to really share information. So upon arriving, one of the first things that we got to do was go to a bike shop. And this is Yomar over here wearing the Trek shirt, and he owns this shop called Bike Aventura, and a really cool shop. They're all the shops in Natal were really interesting. They're very small. They're packed full of stuff. And for someone who's been around in biking for a long time, like I remember like Caloi was a name in the United States when I was younger, and I thought they had like disappeared off the map, but they're still incredibly like going very strongly in Brazil. So here's a picture of a couple shops that we got to visit while we were there. This on the right here are these e-bikes, and these things are really popular. I was surprised at how often I would see them, especially in Rio de Janeiro. They're type 2, class 2 e-bikes, so they're operate on a throttle or you can pedal them. Most people were just throttling them. They're not really very like, they're not really designed to pedal. I mean, the seat's not adjustable and stuff like that, but they're very popular. See a lot of people using them to get around. So type of micro mobility, I'm very, very supportive of it. And we moved around the city so often on what we would call in the United States a bicycle path or a painted path, a shared street. And in Portuguese, you call it a ciclofaixa. And these are areas of the city that allow cyclists well, it's like what we're used to seeing here. They're zoned for cycle use only. And they use sharrows there. Sometimes they have bidirectional lanes. And I rarely ever saw two people going in both directions. So it's more common that people would just be using the whole width of this to go a single direction, in my experience. And sometimes they'd be gently separated from motorist traffic using these small, like, you know, items like three-dimensional items to like really distinguish. And like for a motorist, especially if they travel over that line, they start hitting these, and it's an immediate reaction that they've entered a place on the road that they're not supposed to be. And of course, these are easy to use in a tropical climate because you don't ever have to plow. So these things are like a couple inches tall, and it's no big deal. And one of my biggest questions upon arriving was like, how is this possible? Like, how can you have all these bike paths, and in some cases they are shared lanes being used by bikes and buses? How can this go on? This picture here is showing a very tranquil scene, but in a lot of cases there'd be the bus lane, the bus slash bike lane off to the right, and the lanes to the left would be crowded with motor vehicle traffic, and the bus lane would be mostly empty, except for people that were entering it to turn right. And the reason it works so well and the reason it's actually like people don't break this rule all the time and enter and just drive their car there is because of speed cameras or traffic cameras. And I did a little research on this. There's actually more traffic cameras in the state of Brazil, in the country of Brazil, than anywhere else in the world. And I can't see my notes right now, but I think it was like 20,000 cameras or something like that. And they are operating 24/7, and they're set up to immediately recognize when someone enters and does something illegal. And in this case, the way it pertains to people on bikes is that if you're traveling in the bus lane slash bike lane, you'd be cited for that. So I know we've been trying to legislate for speed cameras in school and construction zones in the state of Maine. I'm a strong advocate for it, especially after being able to travel through Brazil in the safety of a bus lane without having to deal with a lot of motorists in that area. It really just emphasizes how well they work. In some cases, there was a hybrid usage of like a ciclofascia and a ciclovia. Like here's an example off to the right, where you had a ciclovia kind of transitioning into a ciclofascia. They did a really nice job of like signaling on the roadway with paint to motorists, like where this zone was. And for the most part, like, it always worked really well in our travels through that area. And I put this picture down the left just because it's so interesting to see this kind of stuff happening. Like as you're just hanging out in Brazil, there's such an incredible range, like you call it a disparity between like the wealthy and the poor. And this guy here pulling this cart he was just going from trash can to trash can, pulling out items that could be salvaged for money, that could be taken to some sort of redemption center, and just and pulling it along. So the way of life is very, very interesting. So here's some examples of ciclovías. These would be called like separated bike lanes or protected bike lanes in the United States, or in English, I should say. Um, and they come in all shapes and sizes. This one has a curb separating it. This one was sort of like an experimental one, but it's got a zone for people to walk and then a zone for people to bike in both directions. This was on a really quiet day of the week. It was like just after a huge event on a Sunday. People had left and we just kind of were there, mostly alone. It was really quite nice. This is at the university in Natal, and they use these very tall, like concrete structures to separate the ciclovia from where motor vehicle traffic would be. And then this one at the top right is a really long ciclovia that goes many miles along the coast, so you can get from the like downtown area of Natal out to some of the more distant communities. These are all pictures of ciclovias in Rio de Janeiro. Some of you might recognize this pattern on the boardwalk here. This is on Ipanema, very famous beach. And so this is a Sugarloaf. This has got the cable cars going up to it. And the ciclovias in Rio de Janeiro were really incredible. I think there were, uh, gosh, I wish I had my notes again. But the percentage of ciclovias in Rio were comparable to the amount that of bike separated bike lanes that exist in New York City. There was like hundreds of miles of them. So I think it's pretty progressive, actually, I would think, like for a country where we don't necessarily think of them as like as progressive when it comes to bicycle transportation. They actually have done a really amazing job of creating these ciclovias all over the place so that people can transport. And people are on bikes everywhere. In Natal, some of the factories there, as I understand it, have like 500 people traveling to them a day on bike, just to because they don't have access to a car at all, and so they're using a bike to get to the factory. These people here are like riding billboards along the beach here, and you can't see off to the left. Off to the left is the beach. It's very crowded, lots and lots of people. So one of the things that they also have in Rio is Rio de Janeiro has 22 tunnels, and it's really very mountainous city. I think the highest point is almost 4,000 feet. So sea level, obviously, up to 4,000 feet. There's a huge amount of topography. And here's a short video of the ciclovia going through one of those tunnels. Kind of fast forwarded through here. So again, lots of traffic, but good, really good protection from motor vehicle traffic to get through the tunnel. So in this video, I just went from the area of the city called Botafogo, and now I'm in Copacabana. And this is a nice example of like what it looks like when you don't have a ciclovia or a ciclofascia, and yet this is a downtown center in Natal, and it's just quiet. This is the kind of thing that I think a lot of places we tend to be losing this kind of stuff in the more rural areas of the state of Maine, where we get like these big strip malls, like and then the downtown areas sort of like fade away, but extremely vibrant in most places in the places every place I went to in Brazil. So this is a place where you can get your hair cut, you can do legal stuff, you can get groceries, you can sit down and just get a snack, buy clothes. It's all available. Like you really, if you live within a distance of one of these, and most people do that live in Rio or Natal, like you can get everything you need without having a car. So the group that would be most comparable to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine in Brazil would be this group. It's like this association of cyclists in Rio Grande do Norte, and they are really the ones that they really help. They're one of the groups that really help liaison between what the people need and what the municipality of Natal can provide and do. And so this map on the right shows a lot of what those efforts have amounted to. The red shows you where all the ciclovias are. And the yellow are the ones that are in progress, and the blue lines are the ones that are planned for the future. So they're doing, I think there's like 60 kilometers or 100 and some kilometers. So it's like 30 miles. Gosh, again, sorry, I don't have the access to the notes, but they're all there. And then this group on the left, we had this really great meeting that with people that help the planners for the city of Natal, and we just spoke about like how all the advocacy kind of percolates through and develops into meaningful ways that the public can experience. So, and I'll show you get some of what that looks like as far as education goes. So this is what the education do. This is the Center for Transit Education, and they're about to do something right now where I got to sit in and watch, akin to what we do in Maine called a bicycle safety rodeo, except they have the coolest outfits that I've ever seen. I'd like to get a pair of these like overall shorts for all of our BCM instructors to use. And they do very much the same thing that we do in Maine. They talk to kids about how to be a safe pedestrian, how to be a safe bicyclist, and how to act safely around drivers. And then they do some adult education as well. So here's the kids. They're lined up. They actually get on a bus or a van. They come to this center, this square for people to learn, and then they get a chance to ride their bikes. And in this case, they just got on bikes. They're just riding around. There's also examples where they're not using training wheels and they're riding on their own. But for the experience that we had that day we visited, this is what it looks like. So this is a beautiful painted permanent bicycle rodeo course. And they even have this incredible thing adjacent to the facility where they have painted like it's an entire park with bike lanes and walking trails, and it's all lit up at night. You can play soccer. There's like places where you can just exercise. So fantastic usage of municipal support and non-advocate support to like kind of create this. Just incredible. We need some of these in the state of Maine. Uh, Bike Angel is Bike Angels or Angel. They teach people how to ride, um, and it's a nonprofit group. It exists in several places, but this is the Natal chapter, and they're teaching people how to ride. And really, the thing here is like to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, people are healthy, everyone is included, and that it's like a community building event as well. And so people would come. The bikes were provided. There were helmets for people to ride if they wanted helmets if people wanted to use them. And it would start just like we would do anywhere in the world. Like you take the pedals off and you create a bike for any age to practice on and learn how to scoot. And so we had small kids there and we had adults. Here's an adult. She arrived on this day not having any idea how to ride a bike. And this is just after like maybe 1 hour of practice. And then we had small kids too. So I got Nancy and I got to kind of engage with this as well and kind of support this group and be with them. And the groups down there, everyone down there is just so incredible. It's such a fun time. All right. This is John here, and I think he's in the call still. And John is a researcher. He works for the university in Natal. And he does his research. He loves cycling. Some of you who were here earlier got to listen to me reading his little story about why he likes to say bon dia, good morning every day. And his research has a lot to do with why cycling is healthy in general, and then why cycling helps Parkinson's. And I loved his laptop. Just some nice pictures on there. So in the state of Maine, we have a 3 foot rule, and in Brazil, it's 1.5 meters. So they got us there. It's definitely a better law to have a little bit more space if possible. And this is just what the university looks like. I mean, I'm used to living near the University of Maine. It does not look anything like this. Like this place was alive. It almost seemed like like post abandonment, like the plants just took over, except everything was just beautifully groomed and percolating there. It was phenomenal. And we spent a lot of time working with the horticulturalists that actually work at the university and they create plantings for the entire city. But this is one of the specific places that that John researched was this island. And once again, I don't have my notes. I can't remember the name of it. Okay. But it's pretty much right where the Amazon River opens into the Atlantic Ocean. It's got about 9,000 or 10,000 people living there. And it is one of the few places in the world that does not allow cycling at all. And one of the benefits of that, of course, is that people are way healthier. In John's research, there's 3% less chance of cardiovascular disease, 5% less chance of respiratory disease. Um, Assault is lower than everywhere else by about 2%. But yeah, there's no cars, there's only bikes. It's a really, really cool spot. So yeah, check it out. It's right there at the mouth of the Amazon. There's even a National Geographic story article on it. And then John's other research is regarding Parkinson's, and one of the strong links with cycling and Parkinson's is that cycling increases dopamine, which is exactly one of the things that Parkinson's really lowers in a human body. So by increasing dopamine, you can actually limit the symptoms that Parkinson's disease would have on a person. And unlike walking, cycling has this very like routine muscle movement that walking doesn't necessarily have. And so people who might have Parkinson's would walk with a tremor or have trouble walking at all, but they can ride a stationary bike without tremors. And there were even lots of examples of how this has led to people being able to ride a bike. They walk with tremors to the bike, but once they're on the bike moving, they can actually ride a bike, not a stationary one, and do that actively without tremoring. Just some more fun photos from Natal that I want to share. So this is just a typical street in the southern area, one of the southern communities. This is an opera house in Natal. This is another just like really just idyllic kind of like avenue where you'd see these tall pines, and this is a private estate up here to the right, pines, palm trees. And then this is this fort in Natal with a very famous the bridge. It looks like the Penobscot Narrows. And we went for a night riding. We went for a night ride there. All right, so two of my favorite things that I got to eat in Brazil, açaí and cashews. And I was completely floored by the cashew because I never understood like where do cashews come from? I just thought they were nuts. I don't know. I guess I never thought about it too much. But this is what a cashew is right here. You get the cashew apple and you get the cashew on top, and the cashew is in this hard shell, and it's actually the fruit. And this is some sort of appendage that grows off the bottom of the fruit. And when you bite into it, the apple part, you can actually eat it. It's got a very strong flavor. You can make juice out of it. I could eat a few of them, and then like it was like, whoa, okay, I need to take a break now. It's a very, very strong but good flavor. And to get the cashew out of this, you need to roast it at a very high temperature. It's actually like toxic oils in there. If you get them on your hands, it can be really painful. It can hurt your hands. So there's a process to doing it. Um, Cashews. And then acai. Acai, so this is Clebson. He was my host. And we were standing in front of this acai grove. And this is what they look like. This is an acai grove of trees. And you take the berries off of them and you make them into this gelato de acai, which is this acai ice cream. And when in the most traditional way, it's raw, and you take some honey, mel, and you'd pour it on top, and it was amazing. And this is another cashew example. This is one single cashew tree. It's 2 acres. It makes what was it, like 600,000 cashews a year. But it's one single tree. It's the largest cashew tree in the world, and maybe the largest tree in the world. I didn't go that far in my research, but it's one single tree. Every time a trunk or a branch dips down into and it touches the soil, it roots again. But it's one single tree, and some research has said it's like thousands of years old. But 2 acres large, one single cashew tree. Incredible. I love cashews. All right, so just some other random things in Brazil. The wiring infrastructure there, I just couldn't get enough of this. So in some ways, like you can see, like okay, these are signs of like a lot of development happening very quickly. This was what's it called? A voodoo. It was like a little voodoo like scene. It's really hard to see here, but there's a spoon, there's bones, there's a bunch of little stuff. And I was about to touch it, and Clemson was like, no, 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 don't touch that. It's bad luck. Like this is a little voodoo shrine thing. This is Clemson's cat. The cat's name is Mel. Oh my gosh, what an incredible cat. But the reason I put this photo in there also is because of the way houses are designed. This is just louvered openings, and the window is open all the time unless it's raining. There's no screens in anything. And the air just flows through buildings all day long, all night long. There's always a breeze and very few bugs. Little friendly crab on the beach. There's a fun guy to photograph. And then this ridiculously funny restaurant. It says like "Come and Die" restaurant. Even the dogs can't eat it, and there's nothing unique here. That's the name of that's what's on the sign there. So it's a great way of like just being um, kind of fun and getting people to come and eat. This is Junipapu. We did like a trip to Junipapu, which are the big sand dunes north of Natal. And the other thing that's interesting about Natal is a big city, right? 1 million people. And if you ride 10 miles, or you're way out of the city. We would be out of the city like in a number of like 2 miles, 3 miles, you'd be gone. There'd be no more urban center. There'd be no more homes. It'd just be like this beautiful like stretch of sand and forest with people living here and there, but really just open, beautiful area. We spent a lot of time riding on the beach. We had to take these floats to go across the river here. There'd be cars on these floats, but in this case, there were just like 30 bikes. These two people from Uruguay, they were bicycling with their dog up to Puerto Rico. Uruguay is south of Brazil. They had a long trip ahead of them. And then here's a little video of what it's like to ride along the beach below the sand dunes of Genipapu. Just amazing. And the sand's nice and packed. There's no fat bike necessary. Yeah, peace, brothers. Whoops. There we go. All right. The other thing that's great about Natal is nighttime is like, nighttime in Maine, at least where I live, like everyone just is like, it's dark, it's cold, everyone goes inside. Nighttime in Brazil is like, heck yeah, let's get out. So we went out one night. There's a huge collection of cycling happening on most nights in the city. On this particular night, there was a group set up. They were doing a foundational ride to bring money into something. Here's a view from sort of the high point near the shore of Natal on a full moon that was coming up. Really just spectacular. And again, like you can see how lit up it's down there. Like there's just a lot of people moving. It was very, very crowded. And even though we're in an urban center almost the entire time, this is what people ride. They're all riding mountain bikes. I can't think of one person that was on a road bike with drop bars and skinny tires. I don't think I even saw one the entire time. And there's cobblestone roads and people like to go on the roads anywhere. So I guess a mountain bike makes sense, but a little different than what we're used to seeing here too. Aguas de Coco and botecas. So botecas are these little tiny corner barbecue places. And it seems like every group ride, you just end up at one. It was a great place just to get a beautiful snack and have something to drink. An agua de coco is coconut water, and we're used to buying this in a can in Maine. But down there, you just get a fresh coconut. It's usually been sitting in a giant cooler of ice, and someone chops the top off of it, puts a straw in, and you drink it. And then when you're done, you crack it open and you scoop out the coconut flesh, that white, fatty deliciousness. And so that was just great. And they were like a couple dollars, like $2 each, two US dollars each. So very affordable. We just get them all day long, many times. Wonderful drinks. And then some other fun oddities. Um, by law, you need to wear a helmet if you're on a motorcycle, but so many people barefoot on a motorcycle. So, that's really interesting. I saw one motorhome the entire time I was in Brazil. I was there for almost 2 weeks. And the one motorhome I saw happened to have bikes on the back. So, yay. There was a mini Statue of Liberty. I mean, mini, this thing was still like 5 or 6 stories tall. And that was in Natal. This is a picture of an apartment building. Just air conditioning is a big deal there. Even though it doesn't get really hot, when it does get hot, it's hot. And then this is a picture of Natal in Natal because we were there just before Christmas. People were setting up, and Natal means Christmas. And so it was like Christmas in Christmas. It's definitely a great, great travel slogan to bring tourists to that town. All right, going into Rio now. We visited. I got to go for a ride in the national park. It's called daJuca. It's the largest urban national park, or the largest urban park in the world. And it's right in like downtown Rio de Janeiro. I was lucky enough to meet up with Leonardo, and he was my tour guide for the day. So we're just on the side of the road up in the park, and you can see the entire city of, well, not the entire city, but you can see like the iconic part of Rio de Janeiro in the background. It was an amazing ride. And then midway through the ride, like you get to this gas station and it's totally set up for cycling. And we were there like kind of on a quieter day, but Leonardo said that earlier in the morning this place would be packed. We were there later in the day. So bike racks, there's like this little place to hang out. You go inside, the food is delicious. The food is amazing everywhere in Brazil. Like, you just get food anywhere, even a gas station food is better in this gas station at least than most restaurants could serve you in the US. So here's a nice picture of us just traveling on these roads. Um, just the park is closed to motorized vehicles until I don't remember the time now, but it's like after 10 o'clock in the morning, the motorized vehicle traffic can go in there. So it's closed completely until that point. So it reminds me of Acadia National Park in a lot of ways, except with a city of 7 million people below you. But just outstanding. All right, this is some other cool stuff that this is all in Rio as well. But again, bikes just being used everywhere. Ice was a critical component. There was ice going everywhere all the time. Ice to keep things cold. I would rent these orange bikes. Itaú is like the local bank there, like a federal bank in Brazil. And this was like these cool trees. I never got a chance to figure out what they were called, but they grow all over the place there. And then is this guy's pressing sugarcane. And so you take the raw sugarcane and you press it through this juicer and you get the juice. And so you'd be drinking sugarcane juice, which is the same stuff that you can make. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Alcoholic drink. Anyway, if you ferment it, it turns into the alcoholic drink. And so I just want to finish by saying one of the best parts of this entire trip was really the people. So this is not the whole crew, but this is most of the people that we got to meet in Brazil while we were visiting. And just an incredibly generous, friendly group of people. I was in Natal for 10 days, and I feel like these people like after day one, we were like such good friends. And by the end, like I was very much like reminiscent to leave, and such a good group of people to hang out with. And then in Rio, I got to see my godfather and my godmother and my cousin as well. So it was a trip mixed with the sharing of work and what I do here at the Bicycle Coalition in Maine as an advocate and educator for bicycle and pedestrian stuff, but also just to hang out with wonderful, wonderful people. So that's the end of the presentation. Obrigado. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to stop the sharing now. If anyone has questions or comments, I'd love to hear what any of them might be.
I think you did I think, no, I know you did an excellent, amazing work. It makes me, it makes me feel like we need to go back to Brazil and relive all those moments because what you said is it's not just the place, but what makes Brazil and it's the Brazilians. They're so special because they're extremely friendly. I mean, way over friendly. And then, the moment you step your foot in the country, it's like you feel like it's like home. And yes, and there are bikes everywhere, which makes, it's a lot of different in here because here, especially on the roads, if you go out here on the roads, it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to be okay? Will I ever make it back home? And over there, it's like, it's almost, a no brainer. But yeah, that was an amazing, amazing webinar. And I truly enjoyed. And actually, I'll be watching this probably several times again, one time was not enough. But thank you so much, Erik. And thank you, BCM, for everything you guys do to make our lives so much better. And we really enjoy the organization. BCM is amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And a lot of that thanks has to go to Marilia and Clemson, who are our hosts in Natal. So their generosity was amazing. And on bikes, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be possible without bikes. The biking through those cities really was engaging in a way that being in a car would never have allowed. Bom dia. Hello. Good morning. Buenos dias. Well, if that's it, let's close up shop because I am 10 minutes over. Someone's raising their hand or are they just waving? I think it's just waving. Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. I'm glad you liked it. And so we'll put all this on YouTube. We have the next webinar we have in 2 weeks will be dealing with Vision Zero. Vision Zero is the vision that there are zero traffic related fatalities, and how can we achieve this? And so I implore you to please sign up for that one in 2 weeks, and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.